Hey there all, how's it going? Happy, I was gonna say Friday, but it's technically 12:08 in the morning on a Saturday, meaning I just woke up from a nap and now I want to be productive. I wanted to do something different on this channel. I know I've been talking a lot about my writing, my process, my plans, the book I'm working on, which is going very well, by the way. And it's all very exciting, but at the same time, I've had nothing to show for it. I've never actually publicly presented my work, which I found really interesting. I've been writing for 10 years, as I mentioned, as a passion project. I mean, I've technically been writing since kindergarten, but you don't want to see that crap. So what I wanted to do is, to make a long story short, is go into my poetry. And I've got a subfolder for each year from 2015 all the way to 2025 with, I think, almost all the poetry that I've written during that time. And there's some poems I'd like to revisit that are rather old, but I figured if I'm going to do that, I might as well share it with you as well. So this one poem that I really wanted to reread, I haven't reread it in preparation for this recording, is called King of. It is to date my longest poem. Might be like 20 pages. I might be overestimating it. It's been a very long time. But this poem, I wrote it during a very transformative period in my life. I've gone over, like, my depression and, like the very turbulent times in high school and stuff like that. But this poem was written in 2022, and that was after the really heavy, difficult depression that hit when I first started my job, when I first graduated. In retrospect, both really great things, but those changes were so big and happening simultaneously that it just put me really down in the dumps for quite a while. And just as I was starting to kind of crawl out of that depression, there was almost a resurgence in my writing. So King of was one of those attempts to come back. And to me, I highlight it as one of the most important things I've ever written. So what I'm going to do is actually share my screen of the document. I'm not going to do edits, I'm not going to pause, I'm not going to do any of that, as I'm just rereading it. Like when a YouTuber kind of goes back and rewatches their old videos or something like that, I'm going to be rereading an old poem from what I call a previous life, right? If you're a writer, one of the coolest things is you get to look back on your work and you're technically reading the words of a dead person, because you're always going through so many changes. You're always learning more. Hopefully, you want to be evolving as a person, growing your character. And in that respect, you're reading a piece from a person who no longer exists. And that's what I find so fascinating about archiving your work. So, I'm going to switch views here, and we will start King of. Give me a minute here. Yeah, I did overestimate it. It is half as long as I thought it was. It's 11 pages, but I'm sure if I really wanted to now, I could absolutely nail a 20-page poem if I allowed myself the time. But yeah, I remember writing this in my parents' sunroom before I had an apartment, I believe. I'm not even sure if I had plans to move yet. So this was like right before I really started getting my feet wet into adulthood. So this is quite the milestone of a poem. Is it good? Is it not good? I don't remember. It's been a very long time, so let's do it. King of. Once again, haven't read this in a very long time. King of, she said, as she bestowed upon me all these gifts: pride, creation, humility, individualistic strength, posture, steel, a trillion worlds and islands, billowy and tender masses cast through the big nothing by greater things unknown. She made her leave, pen and sword, the most dangerous weapons to humankind, in the hands of a child, confused, small, squeamish, impatient, lost. No prophecy to guide him through untraversed wastelands, no crow's nest to see through the ensuing electric storm, not a map to wander down winding corridors, past hungry buildings, windows centuries high, reflecting his terrified eyes. She seemingly abandoned him, with all the power, all the control, but no will, no song, sorcery with no spellbook, aesthetics with no eye, beautiful limp bodies without souls. He stood with nothing but two words, King of. He would go on preserving all these gifts, any resonance of aim or accuracy evading him. This while, for him only came the motivation to ask her statement, question a declaration, king of. What was he to be king of? What does it take to be king of? Why would he bother being king of, where no soldiers or subjects exist anymore? King of, king of, king of, he asked. No answers from her as he wandered through life, impossible to live, invulnerable to death, merely strafing, stalking, thinking, haunting, another phantom with infinite possessions, countless penned oracles and legends cast adrift amongst a brood of his own, all participants fumbling wildly in all directions, possessed by the empty will of the same two words, King of, King of, King of. You find little on this barren path, with so little to protect, so little to fight, because that's all you are, little. A tick on the body of some bloodless being offering its precious drops of crimson to the fat and frivolous flock, obese bastards draining the pool dry, leaving the ticks to starve, with nothing to do but carve their barely beating hearts from their torso, as an offering to these wretched wranglers of all precious things, in the hope of receiving charity, mercy, answer. They are ignored, and march along irritated, impatient, mind decaying and rampant, as they sling a satchel of foundless fictions over their backs, still asking, King of, King of, King of, slaves to stones in a wasteland of gems, more precious things she seems to have bothered to bless at least once. The mist recedes, the fog less hard, more shapely, as towers erect from the ground, sharp striking chandeliers, slinging from the skies, casting beams of boisterous colors piercing through the ghost of the world. The pale-faced peasant eats it all up. A new home of community, harmony, people of similar strife and fight, existing amongst each other in a place they hardly understand, yet they are alive. Perhaps not understanding, but at least living as if the vexation of a question has been answered long ago by some higher, more generous thing, whose magic of which we are not worthy. By day these souls bathe in the sun as they run across water, like divine deviants defying the very physics and formulas which fabricated their forms, leaping high to apple trees, fantastic fruits, delighted upon as they discuss even sweeter things, once unheard of by these thirsty thumblers. Observing from a distance heavy bags cramping their backs, they look on at these frivolous folk, conceding from speech, and begin to dance. As night eclipses over the promenade, lights of all colors streak through the storm above and about, flashing, strobing. The intellectual superpower, now a naive nightclub, as vibrant purple twilight eclipses the city. Men marching proudly down the streets, women curving and twirling behind the windows, all superb seraphs, flying through the fictitious foundation as if no questions had ever been asked. There was peace here. Ignorant peace. What these passerbys, these hermits would give to lose that damnable question, a sacrifice ensuring liberty from freedom, a curation of think to terminate thinking, one last feast to feed the uneating, to kill this King of, King of, King of, ringing, ringing, as they walk from the precious enchanted lands, laughter and music quieting, hearts slowing, pulses stopping, as the mist sieges the Eden once again, so it is no longer in view. Why have you spoken to me in such a way, presenting yourself and offering nothing but articles with no meaning nor mention of their importance to the sphere? These words, King of, where no kingdom exists, all beautiful things, gorgeous creatures, perfected people, seemingly invincible intuition and intellect are doomed to be decimated by you. Those words, you say, live and suffer with them, thrive and die without. King of can kill the self, lead to legacy before the little life is lived. Is that all this is? King of? King of what? The pitied pioneers, pilgrims, and sorry, the pitied pioneers pilgrim and ponder through fishless fountains, treeless forests, godless faiths, dipping themselves into liquidated fragrances precious and painful, praying for mission, destination, then being pulled from dark waters to find themselves all the same, but madder, erratic, more thirsty than ever before. Brief moments of satisfaction, succulent sedatives, stabbing sores, erotic aromas, corporate killers, anything to feed the illusion and ill of this strange sphere, yet they remain depraved, distant, locked dawn in a coiling world without sun, fertile slime slicks along non-porous walls, mighty divides, indifferent and irreverent as the ghosts are left beating at their base, screaming. Years ago lived a group of folks, a wretched collection of fellows and blokes, hoarding collectors just walking about, thinking, indulging in nihilist doubt. They looked towards each other, only seeing through, still searching for something authentic and true. Fact and passion are within neither one, for they are all empty daughters and sons. All from a mother of many names, raising this flock of devils and dames. She brings them to life, allows them to see, bestows them with gifts, insists they are free. Yet they cower and plead for more, crying eyes bloodshot and hollowed throats sore. King of bellows out as her final reply, her hungered children left alone to ask why. They were created to question, then die? This heavy, invisible clock begins to strike each second. A slow march of 1,000 mechanical footmen, a steady approach towards each of the soulless, still writhing in their internal prisons. Siege and starved, they think of to do nothing. But in their moment of desperation, to ask all they have, king of, king of, king of, as death's shadow smears and dyes the sky, winding time, crippling hope for these feeble folks, stoically scrambling, silently shouting, as they demand donations from dust, for they are yieldless manufacturers, colorless artists, playless children, whose actions found no fruit as they stood and staggered stupidly, gawking at everything. Agony, arousal, attainment, asunderment, becoming no higher as the bronze blood-smeared soldiers tick closer, faster, prey petrified without answer, neither accepting nor evading. Fate. Some strange thing grows inside, a fetal beast living just below the heart, in the deepest of recesses of the mind, as the soulless begin to scream, for finally they see they are kings. A fantastic domain governed by invincibly sovereign doctrine, of magnificent statues gleaming against accentuating moonlight, of strong women, beautiful men, striving subjects, of living livestock, slaughter yielding precious meat for the feast, of skyscrapers stabbing starward, cosmos bleeding from the sky, of gods governing with humanity and love for all, believing and heathenist, of leagueless legacy, rogue romance detached from the true world and its sadistically gorgeous fury. None but constructs, kingdom of the mind, sanctuary severed from surrounding souls, fabricated foundation, laughing, broken, ecstatic, scorned, ravaged, beloved, shattered, remarkable, king of nothing. As he is swept away from the perilous shores of nothing, that is his child. And all she does is watch as her prodigal progeny bleeds itself to life. Yeah, alright, so, I went a little bit crazy. It really has been a long time since I've read this. I mean, must have been 3 years at the most, right? 2022? Yeah, I got my name down there. I date every poem at the bottom. Every piece I write, I date at the bottom. Very important. It's an interesting one, because I think it feels less like one giant poem and more like several poems are speaking to the same story. Like, one thing I did remember about this poem is there's one section where it strictly rhymes, and it kind of alienates the rest where it does not rhyme. I rarely ever rhyme in my poetry. So I find that really cool, the way I structured this, kind of just reflecting on what I did. But yeah, I don't remember the process of writing it. Usually when I write a poem, they're about 2 or 3 pages, and it can take me 15 to 20 minutes. I don't remember the process for King of, though. Might have taken me an hour, perhaps, like in a day. I For poems, I don't like return to them. I usually write them on the spot and leave them as is, file them away. That's usually how I approach things. But as for King of over here, yeah, I don't remember the actual process of writing it. I remember when I wrote it, where I was writing it, but not the process itself. But yeah, I mean, the whole theme here is just about humans trying so hard to attain legacy, to build legacy, to have their lives mean something. King of is the big question here. That's the mantra in this poem. And my current interpretation, maybe I meant something different then, but my interpretation now is kind of realizing that there's a mistake in answering this question, or thinking that it can be answered. Again, I studied a lot of Buddhism and German pessimism. I see a lot of those themes echoing in here. When you're answering the question King of, the fault is answering it at all. There's one section in this poem where you stumble upon these people who are happy, or at least they appear to be happy. They're dancing, they're enjoying themselves, they're feasting on beautiful fruit, things of that nature. And all this person with a sack over their back can do is just keep walking. But the people in this paradise, they're not on a journey anymore. They feel as though they've defined everything in their lives, everything's perfected. But what's the value in that? They're happy. But maybe there's nothing worse than a happy human. Because we should always be striving for more. We should always be asking for, the next great step. Like, what is it that we can do to better ourselves? And at the same time, maybe that's a wrong approach, right? Or maybe that yields just as much sorrow or damage to the human legacy, in that we're just chasing shadows the whole time. And I guess my answer to this question, and may not even be a better answer, is that we should just realize that there is a kingdom of the mind. That quote I remember from this poem specifically. In that, in all this chaos that is our world, and all this non-giving that the world is, and that it does not give us answers, it does not give us truth, we can give truth to ourselves. And I think that is the philosophy of all my writing, in that that's the meaning of my tattoo, which is upside down right now. But the reason why I created this tattoo is to remind me that, growing up, I've talked about this before, I didn't grow up with religion, politics, a group of people to talk to, like a wise figure of any sort, like a pastor or a rabbi or anything like that. Like, I didn't have any of those people or objects or literature to give me a sense of meaning. So the big underlying philosophy that affects everything I write is the idea that we as human beings are not powerful. We are not very important in the scheme of the universe. But in this catharsis, eventually, through a great deal of strife and self-reflection, we're able to realize that on a base level, we can control our own lives. We have the power to do that. And we have superpowers in that way, right? We can take any object, any person, any idea, and make that a part of ourselves. We can worship those objects, right? That's what makes us strong. Our individuality, our sense of self. That's where true human strength is. Not in changing the world, not in having a shit ton of money, not in becoming famous, not in becoming, these days, like an influencer or whatever. Like, those are such superficial things. If you can get there, cool, and then hopefully you're able to do important things with that power, that tangible power, right? But ultimately, you all start down here. Most of us do. And we always feel like we need to work our way up. There's a hierarchy. You got to climb up. But I think this poem's suggesting that there is no up to climb to. You're going to find yourself wandering around, but, it's just a flat plane. You're not going to be going up mountains. You're not going to be going down underwater. Not literally, anyhow. You're mostly just going to be sitting where you are, staying in your little rinky-dink apartment, living in your home, staying on the streets, being in a high-risen tower, wherever it is that you call home. But you're pretty much just staying there. But what you do have is your mind. And you got full control over what goes in, what goes out, what's there to stay, what needs to be gotten rid of. And that process in itself, it might seem so small, but just making those little mental actions every day, making those choices, is what makes humans human. And I think there's something really beautiful about that. Like, for myself, I made the choice to be a writer. I'm not a publisher or anything. No one knows about my work. They know I write. They haven't read my stuff, right? So, but I make that choice to write for myself because that's something I have control over. That's my faith in and of itself. I create characters. I write drawings. I do poetry. I write my own philosophy on occasion. That's the kingdom of the mind that I made for me. And I think everyone's got that. I mean, for some people, they might say, oh, I go towards this religion, or I look towards God, or maybe they say, I'm an atheist, I just care about my family, I don't go further beyond that. Or people are like, I really love superheroes, I really love focusing on Spider-Man or Superman or something like that. And that's a great thing. Everyone can choose whatever they want to be meaningful to themselves. And that's what's truly enriching, I think. And that's what shows the genuine power and plight of the human spirit, our desire for meaning. But sometimes we just fly too close to the sun. We expect too much of this world, which is otherwise amoral, unthinking. It's unable to be aware of you because it's not a conscious object. So, the best thing we can do is think about ourselves and the people we love, the things we love, the concepts, the theories, the wonder, the dreams. Those are the things that make life worth living. And that those big, crazy journeys you're going on, maybe it's time to just slow down a little bit and just focus on the things that are in your immediate vicinity, because that you can't control. You can't move mountains, you can't part oceans, but you can change your life. And that's pretty cool. So, yeah, that was King Of. I hope to do more readings like this. That was my longest poem, so I kind of did the best I could do first going out, but I have some other material as well that we can go into. Like, I got some material from, again, like 2015 onwards, so I got a lot that we can work through, and this could be just regular things. So, yeah, let me know what you think about this poem. If you thought it was, like, pretentious bullcrap, let me know that as well. That's fine. And yeah, I hope to do more of these. Again, I love writing poetry. I love sharing them with my family and friends, but it hasn't really gone further beyond that. So, yeah. Thanks for listening, for watching, however you chose to approach this video over here, and I will see you next time. Take care, enjoy your weekend.